Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. I'm here in Minnesota, and today we have a heat advisory, but it was pretty hot down in New Orleans as well. And Simon Bonenfant, our correspondent for Blind Abilities, was down there getting some interviews. And here's an interview with Clusiv founder and CEO Lukas Simianer. And you can find Clusiv on the web at www.clusiv.io. And stay tuned. Over the next week or so, we'll be releasing more interviews from the summer conventions right here on Blind Abilities. So without further ado, let's head on down to the convention floor with Simon Bonenfant and Lukas Simianer. Hope you enjoy.
The courses that we offer. The first one is the professional skills course, which it's a very robust, big course. Both Microsoft OneDrive and Google Drive, Excel and Sheets, Slides and PowerPoint, Gmail and Microsoft Outlook email platforms, you will learn how to master those. Google Docs and Microsoft Word, you will learn how to edit and format on those. A remote interview preparation course. We're also doing the foundations of computer science, which that course right there walks you all the way through kind of building your first website with us. So using JAWS, and this works for Zoom text as well. And we also do college prep. And soon we're going to be expanding those into some job or vocation specific trainings.
Hello everyone, today on Blind Abilities we have Lukas Simianer, the CEO and founder of the company Clusiv. How you doing today, Luke?
I'm doing great, Simon. It's a pleasure to meet you and connect with you here at the NFB conference.
Yeah, we're having a great time here in the exhibit hall out in New Orleans. I know you were just out on Bourbon Street, you said, right? Enjoyed yourself there?
I was. Bourbon Street in July with no Ubers. It was hot.
Yeah, very good. So why don't you tell listeners about your company, your personal story of how you founded it and how you got into it?
Yeah, definitely. So, my personal story, I guess, is I was born to a single mom and we didn't have much money. And, when I was 7, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. And I'm only 29, but not that long ago, I guess this would have been 97 or so when I was 7 years old, diagnosed with dyslexia. And they treated that as a form of mental retardation. And they told me, I was never going to be good at school. I was never going to really do much. And that really summarized my K through 12 experience. I thought I was dumb and knew I wouldn't go to college, right? And so I joined the Army and I ended up becoming a paratrooper. I go to Afghanistan when I'm 19 and I get wounded over there in Afghanistan. And I come home and I'm 20 years old. And I worked a whole bunch of random jobs, everything from being a cable guy to driving a concrete truck to working on the railroad before I decided I need to go to school. I want something that's mentally challenging, and I started to challenge this idea that had been beaten into me pretty much through most authority figures through my life that I was dumb or incapable. And when I went to school, the discipline from the Army and the life experience from all the hard jobs I'd worked, I just got great grades. There wasn't a semester I didn't make the president's list, and I eventually got into software engineering. And that, if you'd asked me at that point, I changed my major probably 5 or 6 times, from criminology and nursing and everything else under the sun, really. If you'd asked me at that point, why'd you work all those jobs, why'd you have all those majors, I'd have said it was kind of like youthful indiscretion, right? You just don't know what to do, restlessness. But it all kind of made sense here soon. My very first software engineering job was with a multinational insurance company, and they came under what's called Title III litigation, or an ADA lawsuit, for non-compliant software. And so the app where you would go online to get a quote for your home insurance or your car insurance was not accessible to people using screen readers. And they were getting sued for it, and rightfully so. And they were going to pay a consulting firm like $500,000, and it was going to take multiple months to remediate this thing. And I suggested to them, my mom had married at this point, since I'd been an adult. The guy she had married happened to be blind. I said, my stepdad's blind. What if we 1099 or contract him, and I'll sit him next to me. Where he finds a break in the app and its accessibility, I'll implement a fix in the code, because we can just have a rapid feedback loop. The CTO and CEO gave me the shot, and in 7 working days, me and my stepdad mitigated that lawsuit, saved that company millions of dollars. And you're like, how does that start a company, right? And what happened is I got a raise, a promotion. I was on cloud 9, but my stepdad at the end of this was pretty downtrodden, depressed, and it bothered me. And I said, why are you upset, man? You just got paid out really well for 7 days of work. And he tells me, he says, Luke, for the first time in my life, I feel intellectually valued. And it sucks because it's never going to happen again. You know, he'd been relegated, and I didn't know his whole story, but since he'd lost his vision in his 20s, he'd been relegated to working for less than minimum wage in a subsidized warehouse. And he had to choose where he lived because of it. And it hit me then and there that the reason I had done all those things, the reason I had changed majors, changed jobs, pursued more, it wasn't money. It was because I too just wanted to be intellectually valued. And when I realized that there's a giant demographic of Americans that, you know, has been forced to go without the opportunity to be able to upskill and pursue an intellectually valuable job, that killed me. And I said, you know what, this is my next mission after the Army. This is my next mission in life. And that's when it started.
Well, that's great. Well, I'd like to personally thank you for your service in the Army. I know I have much respect for people that serve our country. So you mentioned that you formulated the idea. So how did you take that idea and then make it into the focus for your company? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I realized that there's a huge, staggering problem. These kind of defeating statistics of like 76% of blind Americans are unemployed. You know, the average salary, depending if you go from the Rehab Services Administration or the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, is somewhere between $17,000 and $27,000. And I started with the question, why? Because I had just worked with my stepdad. I knew his friends that he worked with that were blind as well. And I was like, all of these people are smart. All of these people are fully capable. What, aside from transportation, which modern times have solved for that, right? We have buses, we have cabs, we have Ubers, we have Lyfts, right? And we have... And now we have a remote workforce, right? But this is before COVID when I was starting. It says before the remote workforce was as much of a thing. But I started with why, right? It's not a capabilities issue, and it's not really a perception issue. No one, I don't think there's a demographic of people, at least not a sizable one, that thinks, oh, because you're blind, you're not capable. So what is it? And I realized was that the leading cause of such a problem or barrier was a lack of training to the blind individual's user experience, because it's a completely different user experience. You know, call to action buttons, these bright colored, very obvious navigational waypoints or icons that pull a sighted person to click an action, to mute a Zoom call, to close a Zoom call, to close a website, to buy a car, right? Well, when that comes through JAWS, it's a monotone piece of text wrapped around an HTML element. Button, buy here. Button, mute yourself, right? Like, and it can get lost in the minutia. And so I said, we have to create a training mechanism that scales and teaches the things that you need to know to enter the modern workforce. And it's as simple as that. From that day on, I thought about it probably a few nights, and after that, went head first.
Absolutely. Yeah, the interesting thing you mentioned about these graphical user elements versus text, and that really comes down to website and application accessibility. I think for the websites that are not accessible, there is a big disconnect in also getting these websites to be accessible. And the thing is, it's very simple to do that. It's very simple to make a website accessible, and a lot of people think they have to sacrifice the graphics, when really all it is adding certain labels to whatever text that you want to have. Not necessarily for the sighted, but for the screen readers to be able to have that code to pull out that information and then speak it to the user. And you're right, it is a very different user experience. I remember for a long time, people have come up to me, like in my family and my friend group, asking me about problems with their phone, and they say, how can they fix it? And I say, well, I know how to fix the problem with the screen reader, so if you give me your phone, I can do it for you, but I can't tell you how to do it. And they say, why? And they say, well, because you have a picture for an icon, and I have words. You know, I have a button. For settings, I have a button, and you might have a gear icon. I think some of the settings, they have like gear pictures.
Yeah.
And if you would describe that to me, I wouldn't know what that would mean. So I just have to do it and take it for you. So it's interesting, these things, and also things about the mouse, how sighted people use the mouse and blind people, we don't. We use keyboard shortcuts for everything when it comes to operating systems where you would use a mouse, and computers and things like that. So yeah, you're right. There's these tasks are the same, but the user elements are different.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly insightful to hear it posed the way you just did of, you know, I've never heard it transposed backwards. And that's such a cool example, Simon, of like, you know, someone brings me their iPhone, I'm an expert with it. But I need to turn VoiceOver on to do it because the user experience is that different. I've never interacted with it where it's gone the other way, right? And so that's really, really cool to hear. It's really not a heavy lift, but it's also a design thing, right? Because design is where the art comes in. Accessibility, I like to frame it like this in my mind. As a software engineer, accessibility and usability are two separate animals, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Accessibility is like kind of a legally mandated, there's guidelines, there's rules, there's WCAG, 508, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But accessibility does not mean that it's usable. And usability comes when you actually consult the people that you're building this for, right? There are companies out there that are publicly traded, have, market values of billions and billions of dollars. And you ask them, how many blind people actually went over this application before you published it? None. Why? This is not, you're not hiring a new CEO. You're hiring a QA engineer, right? You're hiring someone that makes sure that the user experience makes sense. The organizational flow of it is sensible, right? Especially if someone's using, like you said, text, words from JAWS or VoiceOver to navigate through it. And I think that's a big point that's missed.
Yes, and also in terms of usability, we see a lot of these legal lawsuits, legal mandates that are coming up, which are good to make these things accessible. But when companies go out and Google how to make things accessible, they are greeted with a lot of these accessibility overlays, which basically tell the company that they can pay them either a lump sum or make it a subscription model so that these companies are getting money flowing in from all these different companies, and they basically market that as they pay this money, they take care of all the back end, and they're done. They don't have to worry about the lawsuit. And obviously, I'm sure you can speak to this, that these are not fully accessible, baked in to the software, to the application. It's not. So what would you say to these overlay issues? And a lot of people have put out some strong documentation and strong opinions about this. And what would you also say to these companies who think that this is the right solution for the blind and visually impaired community?
I would go out on a limb, and I personally don't know the founders of any of these companies, but I do know the companies. And I would love to have any of these founders on a podcast, or even just a Zoom call, a private one. But my opinion is that they don't think it's the right solution for the blind community. They're selling flood insurance in Nebraska, right? They're selling a coverage that doesn't do any good for the people buying it. Mm-hmm. The people buying it want a quick, fast fix to avoid an accessibility lawsuit. I don't think that they really care that their application is accessible. I think they care that it looks like they're doing the right thing. Look, there's a button where we care. It's virtue signaling. And I think that the companies that produce this, I don't hate on them, right? That's part of capitalism, is you can build and sell to fill a demand, right? But the demand that they're filling is not for accessibility, it's for coverage, and it's for appearance. And they know that. I couldn't agree more with what you said. The biggest downfall to companies that are using that is they're robbing themselves of accessing a 7.6 million person market.
Yeah.
And if you don't think at least 10 of those people are your customers and 10 of them would be loyal, you're wrong. And that 7.6 million market, that's 7.6 million blind and visually impaired Americans that grows every day. Without going on a tirade, I think that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think we've seen that in many recent years, accessibility has entered the mainstream, whether it be with paid apps or services or maybe not. We've seen a lot of uptake in the audio description field, for example, where companies are now seeing that blind people are into television and movies and they got to make their stuff accessible to the blind and to other disabilities. And I think that uptake has really changed the market in accessibility with the base knowledge of blind people have money too. We will spend money. If your products are good and we want to use those products, we will spend the money just as any other sighted person would, but they have to be usable and accessible, or else we want our money back because we can't use them. Yeah. Right. So.
And I would say it's one of the tightest knit communities out there. NFB is a wonderful example of that. I've seen connections that have happened this week where the last time two people saw each other, interacted with each other, and this is only by hearing their voice, was 4 years ago, and they know instantly who it is. And they're so excited. You can probably speak to this better than I. I'm merely an observer, I guess. But the blind, visually impaired community is an amazing one that's full of support and teamwork and growth, and that's part of why Clusiv, it's been a challenge to build the world's first anything when it comes to technology, because it's pretty rare that an idea is new under the sun. But to build the world's first e-learning platform built for and by people who are blind and low vision, it took a lot. But every day that battle was worth it, because I knew we were going to reduce the net amount of suffering.
Absolutely. So for those who are interested in the trainings that you provide, can you give a little bit of a run-through of what customers can expect from you?
Yes, definitely. Right now, we are distributed through vocational rehab agencies, so ask your VR counselor for Clusiv training, fill out a form on our website, and we'll help you do just that. If you're not currently in VR, we can help direct you to the place where you can get into it, get enrolled. We also work with the contracted trainers of most state vocational rehab agencies. And very excited to announce here at NFB that very soon we're going to be having an iOS app drop that is, we call it the Clusiv Lifetime of Learning, and it is going to have, pretty much the walkthroughs of the softwares you need to access the modern workforce and feel confident going into digital interviews and accessing all the tools you need to. That's going to be available at your fingertips soon. With that being said, the courses that we offer, right? The first one is the professional skills course, which if you go through vocational rehab, it's a very robust, big course. The one that will go straight to the consumers or the students yourselves will be pretty streamlined. Regardless which way, the subject matters that they cover, right, are all the digital meeting platforms, because 86% of interviews are conducted virtually. Both cloud storage platforms that are prominent in America, both Microsoft OneDrive and Google Drive, they're tertiary or peripheral utilities like Excel and Sheets, Slides, and PowerPoint. You'll learn how to extrapolate data from those and understand them in case you have to interact with them in the workplace. The Gmail and Microsoft Outlook email platforms, you will learn how to master those. Google Docs and Microsoft Word, you will learn how to edit and format on those. You'll have a remote interview preparation course so that you are incredibly confident and prepared to go into your interview. And you'll also take a remote learning, which will be at the very start of this course, because we know it's the first time that most people in this community have got to learn remotely. So that's a mouthful, right?
Right.
I'll keep it shorter for the rest, but we're also doing the foundations of computer science, which that course right there walks you all the way through kind of building your first website with us, right? We walk you through it side by side, of course, digitally, right? It's software that you've taken this class on, but using JAWS, we walk you through how to build your first website. And this works for Zoom text as well. And we also do college prep. And soon we're going to be expanding those into some job or vocation-specific trainings. Our ideal goal is to get, these big companies to hire our graduates as accessibility engineers and have them be a part of their engineering teams. Every time they want to push a new feature to a product, there's no reason that when it passes QA, it shouldn't go to accessibility QA. Does this make sense with the screen reader? Does it make sense with Zoom text? Does it make sense in the flow of the app? Cool. It's usable. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
So when you were doing work designing these trainings, how did you get the resources, your company get the resources to make these trainings? They're very robust, and I think they're great opportunities for those who are able to participate in all the programs that you just mentioned, because they really give, as you said, an overall comprehensive course of really what needs to be done to help people not only for job readiness, but also just in general in life. And I'm sure that carries over in a lot of things. So how did your company get the resources to be able to develop these robust training opportunities?
Over a long time. And I thank you for asking me this question, because I would like to go into a little depth for the other companies that are out there who think that this is unapproachable or scary. Because a lot of founders, a lot of CEOs out there do think that. And CTOs as well. So what we did is we stayed humble, right? Yes, we're a company, we're building the thing, and we know we're wrong. I would go to a vocational rehab agency. I wouldn't pay some crazy firm some crazy money to test my stuff or tell me what they thought. I went to a vocational rehab agency and I said, hey, I want to do work experience internships where the state pays the individual. Every state does this, by the way. You just have to ask them. I want to do work experience internships, and I need like 7 people to go through this. And I need these people to be of all skill levels. Someone's great at JAWS. Someone can use iMovie, right? That's astounding. And someone barely knows how to turn the computer on, mm-hmm. right? And we have to get on a phone call every 20 minutes to help them through the next step of it. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, we created the most accessible platform, right? That was just like the casing, what holds the content. The content itself, that came, I dare say kind of luckily as a byproduct, right? We've had multiple iterations of it, multiple skill sets. We had ultimately a bunch of really, really, really talented people come up to us and just say, hey, I want to be a part of this. And, based on their talents, we had someone who's getting their master's in human-computer interaction at Georgia Tech. A super selective program. She's crazy smart. And she's like, I want to write the content on this, right? And we had a guy on our computer science, I should say, not this. For the college preparation, we had a guy who got his law degree from Syracuse, undergrad at Berkeley, and he's like, I want to write the college preparation course. And of course we vetted it, right? And we, all the content it's not just someone talking about how to do a thing, it's how do you use JAWS in a way that is relevant to the workforce in doing that task.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm assuming that once people complete part of your program, because they have paid for this, I'm assuming if they wanted to look back at the content to find some information that they wanted to refresh on, they'd be able to do that, or how does that
You beat me
work?
you beat me to the punch.
Okay.
So the Clusiv Lifetime of Learning, if you're enrolled through a VR agency or an assistive technology contracted trainer, you get Clusiv for life. And what that means is it's 2022 now, right? I think so.
Yep.
Had to check.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a crazy conference, huh? And let's just use Zoom as an example. Let's say in 2024, Zoom changes their user experience. The buttons are all over the place, the menus are renamed, it's not making any sense with JAWS. You open up the Clusiv app on your phone, you go to JAWS, and let's say you want to add an external microphone. You'll select digital meetings, Zoom, add external, and it will give you the step-by-step directions of the JAWS hotkeys and the menu names and the labels of what you need to do to add that external microphone. It'll be updated to the new user experience. And so when we say a lifetime of learning, that's what we mean.
Wow, that is terrific, because as we all know, technology changes. And I know I have gone into apps that will update, and one day they look perfectly accessible, the next day there's 25 unlabeled buttons. So,
Yeah.
let alone a couple of years, there's a lot of stuff that can change. Wow, that is a lot of really good information. So that means you as a company, how do you keep up to date in terms of these modules? Because as things are changing so quickly, how do you put those feelers out to get the updated material and to figure out what's worth changing and updating as you go with products and services?
Well, it's not the most sophisticated thing, Simon. It's, twofold. One of them is a bragging point. So Clusiv, as of now, is 70% blind and visually impaired. 70% of our employees and team, 70% BVI, right? Those four that aren't, two of them are wounded veterans. And so, having such a big BVI population within our team means that they're going to interact with software on a daily basis, and if something changes, they're going to tell us. The second fail-safe is someone's going to complain about it.
Oh yeah, we don't have any shortage of that going on in our blind community, that's for sure.
Someone will be like, Clusiv doesn't have the newest Zoom, and we will call that person and say, hey, can we hop on a screen share something with you, a FaceTime? We'll walk you through it, and then we'll have our people fix the content and update it. Because it is honestly impossible to stay up to date with every single thing, but there'll never be a very big gap.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that percentage of your employees, because when we started this interview, you had talked about ways of getting the blind employed, and not only are you doing that by helping people get prepared for employment, but also your content, you're able to employ blind and visually impaired employees to help you create that content to then help other people. So it's really two or threefold when you really think about how your business model works to help that mission grow.
It does, and we work.
I'm sure that's intentional, right?
It is. It's, and I think it proves a good point. In a startup, every hire matters. When you're a Fortune 500 company, every hire does not matter. You can afford to make maybe 30 bad hires out of 100, and you're still just fine. Maybe that's even par for the course. At a startup, one bad hire hurts. It hurts everybody. That's potentially a tenth of the money that you had budgeted, right? Especially if work doesn't get done. Oh man, it's a high pressure environment to be working in. And so my point is that Clusiv isn't just able to hire blind people. We needed to. And the rest of the companies in the world that produce software don't know it yet, but they do too. And if we can do it, so can they.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I agree. I've said that for a long time. I believe there's a big gap in that area just because the sighted aren't going to always know the same things that the blind people know just by working in the environment of that technology. Because the difference is the blind people, when we're done working in that environment, we're using that technology for every aspect. So if I want to make a phone call, if I want to do a text message, if I want to do anything pleasure-related, work-related, I have to use that technology. Whereas a sighted person may not discover that problem or may not even know that feature maybe existed, just working on accessibility from a sighted person's perspective, because if they're leaving that office or leaving that work environment and going back to doing everything that they do the sighted way, they're not going to know everything working 9 to 5 just in that one realm of the situation. Not to throw shade in that area, but that's just kind of the truth of what I've seen over the years in my life and in my educational processes and work processes. I found that to be really the case. So, yeah.
No, and that's such a crucial point, is that we all are humans, and we all take things home with us, and we all carry different loads. And oftentimes, if not all the time, those loads are invisible. That person that was grumpy, well, their family dog just died. They're, that person who is jumping up and down, just so excited, and you're like, why are you excited? This meeting is stupid. They just got proposed to, right? Or something great just happened in their life. They just got any single thing, right? And those are like temporary fleeting interactions, right? But there are things that occur through our life that aren't fleeting, like blindness, like PTSD, like trauma, like a litany, a laundry list of things, of course, right? And you bring such a good point to that diversity and inclusion have been a big focus point in America, and that's great. But diversity is more than skin color, it's more than sex, it's more than religion. And I think overall how you can kind of summarize many of those things into the biggest factor is perspective, right? How do you get a diversity of perspective? I have a blind lawyer that works for me, and he is not our legal counsel. He creates content. He's an ambassador. He opens doors. He introduces us. He guides our marketing. He gets to use his entire life experience to add value to this company. And that's for all of my employees. They get to bring every bit of their experience. And this happens at every company. This isn't just me saying I'm a great leader. No matter what company you work at, people are not just bringing their skills, they're bringing their life experience to what they do every day, right? And I think that diversity of that is so crucial. And I think that the blind and visually impaired community is a wholesome group of people that have, honestly been oppressed by a system and a lack of innovation for a long time, and now that's changing. And man, what an amazing opportunity for companies to grow that diversity of perspective.
Yeah, terrific. So you mentioned that right now the vocational rehabilitation usually will help people to afford these programs. Can you give the pricing, the price points that you have out right now?
Yeah, so if you go through Voc Rehab or an assistive technology contracted trainer, i.e. a lighthouse or another training facility or school, the student pays nothing. The state or Voc Rehab pays for everything. So we don't charge the students anything. When it comes to this iOS app, a Lifetime Learning, the Clusiv app, that we're going to, the streamlined content, if you will, that we're going to be releasing sometime here in the future, that will be a subscription basis. It'll be incredibly affordable. Pricing to be determined on that one. If you want to be part of a focus group and testing that, it's a paid focus group. You can reach out to me at luke@clusiv.io or through our website. But so essentially, ask your VR trainer, your vocational rehab counselor. You don't pay a thing. You get Clusiv training and our wraparound support and a lifetime access to the platform.
Wow. Fantastic work that you're doing. If companies that do websites, developers and applications who are listening to this would like to contact you to make their website or application fully accessible, is that something that you would be able to help with as well?
So not directly, but they can hire our graduates as accessibility analysts. They get trained, they know how to use all the software needed, and they will help you perfect the usability of whatever it is that you're building. And not only that, they'll be grateful for the amazing opportunity you're providing, and you'll help us change the way society handles blindness.
That's great. So I think both factions would be able to contact you and get something to help in that regard. So I thank you for the work that you're doing. Can you give the website again and any contact information?
On all of social media, we are either clusiv.io, clusiv.io, or Clusiv, clusiv, Inc., INC. Our website is clusiv.io, so clusiv.io. We have forms that you can fill out on there for contact. Whether you're a student, a governmental agency that wants to learn more, a business that wants to tell us that you have positions, or get your onboarding paid for through our training. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Luke. You also have a podcast that is going to launch soon. I know it's not out yet, but can you touch on that? Where will people be able to find that, and what can they expect?
So all the information will be on our Instagram, our Facebook, but the best place to go will be our website, clusiv.io, as I said earlier. The Clusiv podcast, we're going to be interviewing some amazing folks. And Simon, I can't wait to have you on it as well. The first episode will drop sometime next week. I check in next Friday, and it's going to be a blast. And in the future, we're going to even have kind of an interactive kind of talk show, right, where it's a bit of a Zoom webinar, and we just kind of riff and jam and talk about different things that go on. And some of them will be really focused cameos and high-profile guests.
Okay, great. Go and check into it, and you might find some good content. So
Wonderful.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations and the reality
of blind abilities.
The realities of blind abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.